Yo, what up everybody? It's me, Fitness65. I'm just bringing you a quick video. Just gonna give you my quick thoughts about the WWE draft that happened yesterday on Raw. I gotta say that Raw yesterday was a pretty good Raw. You had some pretty good matches. You had Evan Bourne against CM Punk. You had Chris Jericho against Christian, and you had other good matches on there. Overall, Raw was a pretty good Raw, and without the guest host, everything just seemed to click and seemed to get you ready for next week's Raw. So I enjoyed Raw yesterday. But getting over to the draft, I just wanted to get my thoughts on the draft from yesterday. Some people say that SmackDown got the short end on the stick, but to me, SmackDown got some good wrestlers, and they might get some good wrestlers later today when they have the supplemental draft at 12 o'clock. So we'll have to see what happens with there, but I think SmackDown didn't do too bad, but still they did sort of take some of the main eventers and the star power from SmackDown, so SmackDown's going to be hurting a little bit, but I don't see them hurting too much. So we start off with the first draft that happened yesterday, which was Kelly from Raw to SmackDown. Really, this move isn't gonna make a difference, or people aren't gonna really talk about it. It's not gonna mean anything for the Divas division because Kelly really wasn't doing much on Raw, and she's not gonna be really doing much on SmackDown. She's pretty much gonna be doing the same thing she did on Raw on SmackDown, so this isn't really a big move. I don't know why the WWE wanted to have Kelly move from Raw to SmackDown. They could have had someone else from there do that, but I guess they wanted to have Kelly on SmackDown to sort of bring something to it, but it's not gonna make any difference. So that move I don't really care about, and I don't think anybody else cares about it. The second move is the Big Show from Raw to SmackDown. This was kind of like because Big Show always gets moved in the draft, either the second or the first pick. He's always moved, so this pick isn't gonna make a difference because Big Show's gonna wound up on Raw again next year, so there's not gonna be anything different about it. But it looks like they're going to be turning the Big Show face after you saw the confrontation with The Miz and the Big Show. So it looks like Big Show's going to be one of the faces on SmackDown. It's going to be interesting to see what the WWE does with some of the faces on SmackDown, because my other picks that I'm going to be talking about, those guys are faces as well, and you don't really have that many heels with the exception of Jack Swagger and CM Punk, and you really won't have that many challengers for Jack Swagger's World Heavyweight title with The Undertaker taking his break and some of the other guys that are gone off to Raw. You won't really have that many guys, with the exception of the couple guys that I'm going to be naming that are going to be moving to SmackDown, but you don't really have that many guys. But it'll be interesting to see what they do, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with the supplemental draft. But Big Show from Raw to SmackDown, I don't really see Big Show doing much on SmackDown though. Probably having a feud with the mid-carder, or he probably might get a world title shot now and then, but I don't really see I don't really see Big Show doing too much on SmackDown. Then we got John Morrison from SmackDown to Raw. This is kind of a big move, as many people wanted to see John Morrison on SmackDown to sort of develop more, but looks like the WWE is looking for John Morrison to be that big star, so he's going to be on Raw. I really don't see him being in the main event picture because there's too many guys on the main event picture for Raw. I really see him being more in the mid-card level, probably feuding with The Miz for the US title, or probably feuding with some mid-card heel or something like that. Other than that, I don't really see this guy in the main event. I see maybe a couple months, or give it another year, and he'll probably be feuding with some of the main event guys on Raw. But John Morrison to SmackDown to Raw kind of hurts SmackDown a little bit, but we'll see how he does on Raw. Then there's then for the fourth pick was R-Truth from SmackDown to Raw. I kind of like this pick. I mean, many people already knew he was gonna move to Raw because they didn't expect him to stay on SmackDown for too long, and because he was always making appearances on Raw, well, mainly because of the tag team, and they kind of liked him on Raw, so kind of saw him moving to Raw. I really don't see much of R-Truth doing much on Raw, or although he'll probably be feuding with some mid-carders, probably tag teaming with John Morrison now and then again, but I really don't see much with him on Raw. And it looks like they're going to have him feud with Ted DiBiase Jr., which I don't have a problem with, and maybe he'll probably be in a mid-card feud with the US title or something like that. So let's hope they do something with him on Raw and he doesn't become guys that get lost in the shuffle. So yeah, R-Truth from SmackDown to Raw. I like this move. I wish though that they could have had him on SmackDown to sort of for him to develop more, but what are you gonna do? So he's on Raw now. The next pick is Edge from SmackDown to Raw. I kind of like this pick because there wasn't much for Edge to do on SmackDown, so they needed to move him to Raw to sort of have him have fresh matches on Raw. So I really don't have a problem with that. The only problem though is the other pick that moved to Raw. I don't know how they're going to balance that out or how they're going to do that, but it'll be interesting to see how they do that. But for now, Edge is going to be on Raw, and we're going to be seeing some fresh matches and some fresh feuds with Edge. And like I said, they did all they needed. They did what they could do with him on SmackDown, and it was time for a new change and a new scenery for Edge. And it looks like Edge is going to be on Raw, and it looks like Edge is going to be heel now. And it looks like he's going to be feuding with Randy Orton, which is going to be a really interesting feud because these two had a pretty good feud in 2004, and they had some pretty good matches in 2005 and I believe 2006, and then 2007 after WrestleMania 23 they had a match on Raw, which was a pretty good matchup, and it was one of the most underrated matches that most people don't talk about on Raw because these two just has so much good chemistry in the ring against each other, and it's going to show in their match at the next pay-per-view or if they decide to have that matchup. So I'm glad that Edge went heel. His face kind of ran its course, and people didn't really buy him as a face. So now we get Edge heel on Raw, and it'll be pretty good now with Triple H gone and other guys and Batista, who's going to be leaving Raw, or who's going to be leaving the WWE for a movie career. So now we got the balance of heels on Raw now with Edge turning heel. We then go to the sixth pick, which was Kofi Kingston moving from Raw to SmackDown. I like this pick. Like I said, if Kofi would have stayed on Raw, he would have been lost in the shuffle. Many people said that, and it's good. It's a good move and a new change of scenery for Kofi Kingston. Hopefully he gets into the world title scene, or they do a lot more with him on SmackDown, which I know they will, and we get some fresh new matches and some fresh new feuds with Kofi Kingston, and looks like he'll probably be one of the top faces on SmackDown, which I have no problem with because Kofi Kingston really needed to move from Raw because he just wasn't doing much on Raw, and now on SmackDown he's going to have a lot to do and a lot to work with on SmackDown, and he's going to have a chance to develop on SmackDown. So I'm digging this move, and I love it. The seventh move was Christian from Raw to SmackDown. I like this move as well. There wasn't much for Christian to do. If he would have stayed on Raw, he pretty much would have been lost in the shuffle, and he would have had to take a back seat to some of the guys on Raw. So I love this move. It's a really good fit for Christian, and hopefully he gets a world title run. He gets a world title push, and they have him feud with Jack Swagger. So yeah, I'm loving this, and it finally has Christian and there's finally something for Christian to do, and he won't get lost in the shuffle like he did on Raw. The next move is Chris Jericho from SmackDown to Raw. This is kind of interesting now because Edge is on Raw. Like I said, I don't know how they're going to do that and how they're going to balance that out, but we'll see as the weeks progress. But now you got another heel in Chris Jericho, and like I said, it's going to be interesting how they balance all these other heels out with Edge and Jericho as heel. Now you got Sheamus, and now you got other guys who are heel on there, so it'll be interesting to see. But Jericho from SmackDown to Raw, I like it. Although I am going to miss Chris Jericho being on SmackDown. It's going to hurt it a little bit, but still Jericho on some Raw is going to be pretty interesting. But yeah, that's pretty much my video. Let's see how this supplemental